Hi guys, and welcome to this moonshot. So this moonshot is a continuation of a previous one all about Python lists. So if you haven't watched the previous moonshot, which discussed an introduction to Python lists and how to use them, please go ahead and watch that now. And if you are new, a new subscriber to Moonshot or a new student, you are very welcome. And basically just to explain what moonshots are, they are weekly or bi-weekly short videos focusing on one particular aspect of Python. So in this moonshot, it's Python lists. In previous moonshots, we built a Python calculator, a random number generator. We spoke about variables and strings. So with each moonshot, it's one small look at a particular piece of Python. So this moonshot is not meant to be an entire overview of Python lists, just simply an introduction to whet your appetite and to hopefully start you on your journey within Python, or if you're stuck in a particular area, to help you get unstuck. So with that said, let's jump into lists part 2. So as you become a more proficient Python programmer, the majority of lists that you work with will not be simple, static lists as we've seen in the previous moonshot. You will need to know how to dynamically work with lists. For example, imagine you own a company and have two lists, a product list and a staff list. Both of these lists will change regularly as you add new products and staff members. So let's discuss now how to modify items in a list. To modify elements in a list, we will be using similar code to that of accessing a list. Let's take a look. So here in this code block, as you can see, we have a comment at line 1 modifying an item in a list. So we have a list called fruit_products, and to that list we have given apple, orange, lemon, lime, banana. We then print out this list at line 3 with a print statement and the name of the list. Let's hit Shift and Enter. There we go. As you can see in the code above, we have a spelling mistake at index 0. Apple is incorrectly spelled as apple, A-P-L-E. So let's fix that. So in the next code block, as you can see in the comment, modifying an item in a list, we have our list which we've called fruit_products equals, and it's the original list from just above, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 items or 5 fruits in our list. So we're going to print out that just to show the mistake. But then what we're going to do is we're going to correct the spelling mistake here at index 0, the first element, which is apple. And how do we do that? Well, as we saw in a previous moonshot, to access an element of a list, we use square brackets and we put in the index number. So as we know, to access the first element in a list, it's at index 0. So fruit products, index 0 equals apple. So here we're assigning to position 0 or index 0 of the list fruit products the string apple. We're then going to print out the new list or the modified list to make sure that the change we've made has been correctly implemented. So let's hit Shift and Enter. Okay, perfect. So as you can see, our first list has the misspelling at apple and the second list has it corrected. So in the code above, the change in element, we use the name of the list followed by the index of the item we want to change. We then assign to it the new value, in this example, apple. You can change any element of a list with this approach, not just the first one. And the next code example, you can see here that we're completely switching out apple for tomato. So let's hit Shift and Enter. There you go. And that's just to demonstrate that it's not just simple changes, but you can switch out whole elements of lists. Let's discuss now how to add items to a list. So rather than correct or replace an item in a list, as we did in the previous code examples, you may want to add a new item to a list. Perhaps a new staff member has joined your company. In Python, there are several ways to achieve this, so let's take a look. Let's first discuss appending items to a list. Using the append method is one of the easiest ways to add to a list in Python. When you append to a list, the item that you append gets added to the end of the list. So here we go, we have in this code block, we have on the left hand side the name of our list and on the right hand side the elements that are going to be in that list. So these are members of our team, so team member names, Jane, Tony, Mark. At line 3 here, we're going to print out that list so we can take a look at it. And then as you can see here at line 5, we have the name of our list, dot append, and we have the value that we're going to append to our list. Again at line 6, we print out the team members list to make sure that what we've done has been correctly implemented. Let's hit Shift and Enter. There we go. So as you can see, we've added the name Mary to the list team members without impacting any other items in the list. Imagine that you have an email list and it's empty. You ask people to subscribe to your newsletter with their email address. Where do these email addresses go? Well, let's take a look. So in this code example, we're going to use the append method on an empty list. So how do you create or initialize an empty list? You first create the name of your list, which in this example is emails at line 4, our equal symbol, and then we have just empty square brackets. Now, at line 6 we have our comment, append email addresses to the emails list, fine. At line 7, emails.append, and we have the name or the value that we want to append to that. And we do that at line 7, 8 and 9. Finally at line 12 we print out our list. Hit shift and enter. There we go, perfect. Let's discuss inserting items into a list. We can add new items to a list at any position by using the insert method. Let's take a look. So once again we have our list of team members with 3 team members in the list. We print out that list just to take a look. Then at line 6 here we're going to insert at position 0 the name Alice. And then on line 7 we print out our list. Hit shift and enter. There we go. Alice, Jane, Tony, Mark. And as mentioned in an earlier moonshot, methods act on the code that they are called upon. In this example, the insert method has acted on the team members list by moving all items in the list one position to the right and inserting the value passed to the method. And that value is Alice. So if you are unsure about Python methods, do go back and check out earlier moonshots, or indeed take a look at the Beginner's Python Programmers course. Now, we've seen how to create lists, we've seen how to create empty lists, and we've seen how to add lists and edit lists. What about removing items from a list? How do we remove an item from a list? Let's say a member of our team, Jane, has left the company. We now need to remove her from our list of team members. We do this using the delete statement, or DEL. If you know the position of the item within the list that you want to remove, you can use the DEL statement, the delete statement. Here we have our list team members at line 2. We print out our list just to have a look at it before we make any changes to it. It's always a good idea. At line 5 we use the delete statement. So we have DEL, then the name of the list we want to remove an element from, and we give it the index position that we want to remove. So the position of the element we want to remove. At line 6 we print out the list. There we go, we've removed Jane from position 0. With a delete statement, you can remove an item from any position in the list so long as you know its position or index. So we've gone back to the same list or the original list, and here at line 5 you can see that we want to remove the element from index 2. Let's hit shift and enter. There we go, Mark has been removed. Don't forget, items in a Python list start at position 0. Once you have used the delete statement on a list, you will no longer have access to that element. Let's discuss how to remove an item from a list using Python's pop method. In the last code example above, we removed Mark from our list of team members, and by using the delete statement, we no longer have access to that element. But what if we need to access the element we just removed? We have removed Mark, but we may still need to do something with his name, such as passing it to HR system or to a payroll system with a notice about his ceasing employment. But by using the delete statement, we no longer have access to do that. For when we need access to an element removed from a list, we use the pop method. This method removes the last item from a list but allows you to keep working with it. And why is it called pop? Well, think of a list in Python as a stack. The pop method, you are popping one item from the top of the stack. So you're removing the top element from the stack. So let's take a look at how we implement the pop method. So here in this code block, we start off at line 2 with our original list of team members. We then print out that list just to make sure that we're working on the correct list. It's always a good idea just to print out the original list if possible, just to make sure that everything is okay and you're working with the data you expect to be working with. Now, at line 6 we're creating a new variable. That variable is called pop_team_members. And to that variable we are going to assign one element. And that element is the one that is popped from the end of our original list. So teammembers.pop, what's going to happen here is this method is going to remove the last element of the team members list and place it in this variable here, popped team members. So I hope that made sense. Then at the next line, here, line 9, we print out our list again. And finally, we print out our popped team members. So let's hit enter. Perfect. Our original list, our list with the last element removed, and then finally that last element that was removed printed out. Now that we have access to the popped item, how might we use it? As discussed above, if Mark is leaving our company, then there could be a number of things that need to be done, such as removing him from payroll. Let's take a look. So again, we have our team members list. Team leaver equals team members.pop. So remove the last item of the list. But we want to make use of that last item. Don't forget, that's the whole point. Then we have our print statement. And in here, now we saw this in a previous moonshot, these curly brackets, and using an item from a list in a string. So team leaver.title. So we're inserting a variable here into our string. Team leaver.title has left the company. Please remove him from the payroll. Shift and enter. There we go. Excellent. So if any of that code is unclear, particularly here at line 5, jump back to the last moonshot, list part 1. Now, how might we pop items from other positions on a list? So the pop method is great if we want to remove the last item from a list. But what about when we want to remove an item that is not the last item on a list, such as the 3rd or the 51st? What happens then? As we've already seen, each method in Python ends with parentheses, so that we can pass a value to the method before it acts on the code it's called on. We can include the index of the item we want to remove in the parentheses of the pop method. Let's take a look. So here we have our team members list. Perfect. Again, we have our new variable, team leaver, and to that variable assign the popped element, but we want to pop now position 1. So remove the element at position 1, and then insert that variable, team leaver, into a string. Take a look. Great, Tony has left the company. So when do you use the delete statement or the pop method to remove an item from a list? Ask yourself this question. Will I need to access this element again in the future? If the answer is no, use the delete statement. If the answer is yes, use the pop method. Okay, how do we remove items from a list by their value? So there will be times when you're working with lists so big, you won't know what position items are in, but you will know the name of the item. Think again of a list of employees which contains 5,000 items, 5,000 employees. You won't know what position the employees are in, but you will know their names because someone will email you to tell you that they are leaving. So here in this code block, we have team members, Jane, Tony, Mark. You're just going to have to imagine that this list is 5,000 names long. Print out the list. So team members.remove, but we're passing in now the value Jane, the string Jane. Print team members. Shift and enter. Perfect. When using the remove method, you can continue to work with the value that has been removed, a little bit like the pop method. Let's take a look at an example of that. Again, the first 2 lines here, lines 2 and 3, should be very familiar to you now. So we create a new variable called resigning. So Jane is resigning from the company. Team members.remove. And who are we removing? Well, we're removing the element we assigned to the variable resigning. Then print out team members, and again, insert the variable into a string. Let's hit shift and enter. There we go. Jane has decided to resign. Please remove her from payroll. This code example has a little bit more going on than previous examples, so let's take a moment to step through it. At lines 2 and 3, we are simply defining a list of team members and printing that list out. At line 5, we have created a new variable called resigning and assigned to it an element from the team members list. At line 6, we have passed the variable resigning to the remove method and then used this method on the team members list. At line 7, we print out the updated team members list with Jane removed. Finally, at line 8, we demonstrate that even though the element Jane has been removed, we can still work with it. The remove method only removes the first instance of the value passed to it. If our team members list contained more than one Jane, then we would have to take a different coding approach to remove all the Jane elements. We'll look at how to do this in another moonshot. Finally, for this moonshot, let's discuss a common error when dealing with lists. No matter how much you want to avoid them, as you begin to learn more Python and program more, errors will start to creep into your code. When working with Python, a common error is called the index error, and below is a list of days of week so we can demonstrate this error. So we have a list, days of the week, and in it, as you would expect, are the days of the week. Now let's print out days of the week at index 7. Hit shift and enter. Oh, list out of range. Where does it say that? It says that just here, look. List out of range. An index error, list index out of range. Why? Well, as we said at the very beginning, in Python, lists begin at 0. So Monday is not 1, it's 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But we've asked our list to print out the item at index 7. There is no index 7. So the index error means that Python can't find an item at the index location you've asked for. Okay guys, that's it for this moonshot. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this moonshot is part 2 of 2. So in the first part, we introduced ourselves to lists, the very basics of using lists with Python, and in this moonshot, we got a little bit more in depth. As always, if you'd like to know more, do check out my Beginner's Python Programmer course or take a look at my Medium page. Plenty of resources on there, not just around lists, but around projects and around methods of coding, ways of coding, and so on. So thanks for listening, and I hope to see you again soon.